Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Hope you're off to a great start today. Lovely to have you here. Lucas and I got you until 1 o'clock. You have plenty of time to jump in at any point. 615-737-1045. Last day of practice, or at least last day of open practice for media to be able to attend. Titans OTAs, the last week of it. They'll have their final situation tomorrow, whether they take them, to play laser tag or top golf or something like that as opposed to actual football practice remains to be seen. But in the meantime, it's the last time we'll hear from them, and you'll do that throughout the course of the noon hour today. We'll have the press conferences, Mike Vrabel, and a handful of players. Meanwhile, I want to, there's a lot of sports things we've got. We've got DeAndre Hopkins. We've got a couple of different things to get to. We got the dumbest thing in sports, but I'm not going to list it all out for you. All that to say that I want to start somewhere different today because I've been telling you about this charity bowling event that we've got coming up on July 13th. And, we love to do this event. It was really, really fun last year. We raised a lot of money. You guys were exceptional. And we're looking forward to doing it again. And, we've been kind of casual about it because I don't like to yammer at you all the time with, hey, buy tickets to this, buy tickets to that, all these different things. Until I saw a message from the charity, Home Street Home, that we are working to benefit this morning on Instagram. It's at Home Street Home _TN is where you can follow them on Instagram. And it's just a screenshot of their U.S. Bank Home Street Home checking account with a balance. The balance is $2,077.87. Now, I'm going to read you this message, and I'm doing this not because I want you to buy tickets to the bowling thing. Obviously, we want you there. We want you to hang out. It's going to be a great time for a great cause. But I saw this morning, and it sounds a little more desperate than that. We're going to try and get Stephen Young on the radio show at some point this week to tell you a little more about the work that they're trying to do and how much harder that work has gotten to help the homeless community here in Middle Tennessee. But I just want to read you this message. I know it's a kind of weird way to start the radio show, but I do think it's important. So this is from Stephen. We desperately need your help. I didn't sleep last night. The amount you see, the bank balance I mentioned earlier, will cover our overhead, warehouse rent, utilities, insurance, and basic operational expenses for 1 month. Remember, we don't have a payroll. What it won't cover is our ability to provide for our friends. And by our friends, he, of course, means the homeless community. Food, water, tents, sleeping bags, etc. We won't be able to get someone into rehab or immediately get someone out of a dangerous situation until we can get them into a safe place. We are also out of food and seriously low on tents, sleeping bags, and all other supplies. Having to say, I'm sorry, we can't help, is becoming a real possibility. Year to date, individual donations are down 38%, and our monthly recurring donorship, which used to be more than enough to cover operational costs, has dropped by over $2,800 since the first of the year. To do what you see done in our posts runs between $7,000 and $8,000 per month, and nobody else is doing what we do. So if we can't, our friends will do without even the most basic needs. So like I said, we desperately need your help. I'm begging you to please give what you can. No amount is too small, and every penny matters. And he goes on to mention their following. If half of the 9,300 people that follow them could give just $10, this crisis would be averted. If we could get just 1,000 to become $10 monthly partners, I would never have to make another post like this again. Thank you, and God bless. They have a Venmo at Home Street Home on Venmo, and their website, homestreethometn.org, is where you can go. So, the bowling event, we're excited about it. It's not till July 13th. We want you there. If you are inclined to, try and help them out a little bit more immediately, I just wanted to share that post with you guys because this is something that, Stephen and Andy are always very supportive of what we do around here. They have helped me in a variety of different ways personally, and they are really trying to do good work out there in Middle Tennessee. So I just wanted to make sure that we started with that I know it's kind of a weird place to get the show started on a Wednesday, but it does seem like they're in a bit of a dire situation.
Summer officially, I guess, starts in mid-June, late June. And
you feel it today.
He's kind of talked about that, right? That a lot of times that's worse than the cold. That's worse than the harsh winter.
Well, and he's often come on here, and like I said, we're hoping to get Steven on this week. He's talked about, like, people want to have him on. They put him on the local news around the holidays, right, around Thanksgiving, around Christmas, and they see a large portion of their donations on an annual basis come in around the holiday season, but they struggle at certain points, and summer is one of those points when they're trying to make sure that people are, protected from heat exhaustion, from dehydration, from all these different situations that arise. So, we want to try and do as much as we can, humanly possible. We want to try and not annoy you guys with it because I know, with things like the install, we're doing a lot lately, and I know it almost seems like, I don't know. It's just a weird thing to ask people to buy tickets to things all the time. But this is not that. I just wanted to make sure that you guys understood just kind of how dire their situation is, why we're doing the bowling charity event for them, and why they might need help a little sooner than our event on July the 13th. Okay, so no graceful way to pivot into DeAndre Hopkins Titans talk, but that's going to be a subject, obviously, today. He's scheduled to make his visit to the New England Patriots coming up tomorrow. And the sales pitch is going to be pretty interesting. The thing that I continue to hear is, without having seen contract numbers yet, because remember, at the core of this thing, always remember, money matters more to him than anything else. It would be considered a bit of a shock if he chose New England. Now, we're going to do a cost-benefit analysis type of situation. Well, Lucas, this segment was your idea. You want to tell people what we're going to do coming up next?
Yeah, so we have a list of categories: quarterback, wide receiver room, head coach, play caller, things like that. That if the money is even, when we throw out the question, okay, why would DeAndre Hopkins choose New England over the Titans? Everybody says money, money, money. Yes, that's probably the answer. But let's say money is almost exactly even. What factors would go into DeAndre Hopkins choosing the Patriots or choosing the Titans? But when you say people would be shocked if DeAndre Hopkins were to choose New England, who do you mean by that? Do you mean the city of Nashville, Titans fans? Do you mean national media?
Yeah, national media, just basically talking to people around the league who are covering the story and kind of keeping in touch with people in other markets like New England and, national networks and things like that, just to kind of gauge what everybody's temperature is based on, cross-referencing what I'm hearing versus what other people are hearing. It does seem like there would be a general sense of shock if he ended up in New England. Also, not just because it would be a surprising landing spot for him, but because that's one of the biggest contracts that they've ever handed out for a wide receiver. If they're going to meet the price point of $9 to $10 million a year, which is being reported. In fact, I want you to hear this clip from Albert Breer. It's courtesy of NBC Sports Boston. Albert Breer, who's the lead NFL writer for Sports Illustrated and who is based out of New England, has covered the Patriots for a very long time. He's giving an estimate on why it might be a bridge too far for the Patriots from a financial standpoint.
What will it take, Bert? I mean, I think right now, and I talked to a couple of teams about this today, what he could get, maybe somewhere between $8 and $10 million in base pay, with upside to get him, to make him whole and to get him closer to the number that he was originally scheduled to make. Now, I think it's going to be very difficult for him to get anywhere close to the $19 million when it comes to the incentives and stuff. But I think that he's probably looking to still get close to $10 million, which I might be a bridge too far for the Patriots still.
Yeah, definitely. The best receiver contract they've ever given out is still Nelson Aguilar for 2 years and $22 million. Like Juju Smith-Schuster 2 years later, much higher salary cap, better player, proven player, got less than that. The same amount of guaranteed money over 3 years. Bill just refuses to pay for quote-unquote number one wide receivers, especially at premium prices.
The money does matter here, though, because culture.
Well, it always matters.
No, but guys in the locker room, like they keep score. And like, so they know who you're paying, and who you're paying is what you represent, right?
Who's the highest paid receiver right now?
The highest paid receiver right now would be Juju, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At what? Oh, what is it?
3 for 25.
Okay.
Not fully guaranteed. The other part about this, though, and I've been thinking about when they signed Revis back in 2014, that was a player who, like Hopkins right now, should be humbled. He wanted a bag. He wanted his money. He was coming off an ACL tear, bad experience in Tampa. They said, we'll give you your money. Sort of. It was a 2-year deal, backloaded, and they cut him after that first year, parted ways, whatever it was. If you say Hopkins, you'll get your 15 average annual value. That's fine, but we'll only do 10 in the first year. That might get a player who's humbled. They buy low in terms of his career, and for him, he at least gets to say he gets 15.
I am so sick to death of talking about a couple $1 million here and there for the Patriots. Like that matters to them. Like, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, you know, they're a 500 team. They've lost a lot since Tom Brady's walked out the door, and we're trying to get him for 8 or 9 or 11. Like, you know, please. Like, this is why I think fans should be frustrated with the team. Do you want the guy? Okay, is he worth it? Then he should have been here last week. They have these passing camps going on right now. They're installing the offense. They're working, and instead, what? He's going to come out tomorrow night and have dinner? Like, why is he not on the field? If you need the guy, want the guy, bring him in early, put him on the practice field. So this is why I'm out. It's not going to work.
So that's a longer discussion. And by the way, does that sound familiar to any of you? Based on fan frustration around lack of resources devoted to the wide receiver position? See, it's not just you. But how, you know, quote unquote, desperate New England is to add DeAndre Hopkins, and whether it's a matter of, you know, $2 million, $1 million, in the middle of the negotiations on this, DeAndre Hopkins is going to be, you know, pitched by a number of different teams at this point, and there still remain a number of teams who haven't been reported on, but are still reportedly interested in him without having scheduled like an official visit, the way that he has here in Tennessee and the way that he has now or will take tomorrow in New England. So we'll see what comes of that. Again, like I said, this is not something that I think is going to move at a very fast pace. But for the Titans, it's a situation that's certainly worth monitoring, and we're going to do the kind of cost-benefit analysis of the Titans and the Patriots for DeAndre Hopkins coming up next. Doesn't that sound like the most sports radio segment ever? This or that? Is that what you want to play here with DeAndre Hopkins? Patriots or Titans? This or that? 615-737-1045.
We can lean into the cringe every now and then.
Oh, okay. I like the cringe. Speaking of cringe, is he back there? Is he lurking? Has he emerged from the shadows of Las Vegas?
What the heck is that supposed to mean, Buck? Cringe back here.
It made me so happy. He came out this morning. I pulled into work. What time, Bert, would you say that I arrived at work today?
A crisp 9:58, perhaps.
That was early. Pulled in, and I was greeted not just by Ramon Foster and Will Bowling in the parking lot because they were admiring Ramon's new Mercedes Sprinter van.
Ooh. Oh, is that okay? I pulled in today, and I said, what in the world is that? That makes sense. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I thought there was somebody of great importance here, and no, that was just what Ramon chose to drive to work this morning.
There is someone of great importance here every day. Ramon Foster. But yes, it looked like a band had pulled up in the midst of their tour or something.
Correct. It's the thing that they take like the active Titans players on those they don't still do the caravan where they take them around on those buses with Mike Keith and Coach Mack and Amy. Anyway. So I see Ramon, I see Will, and then I look up at the balcony on the second floor, and there, cigarette in hand, lit, leaned over like the scene out of Titanic, is Bert to greet me.
Paint me like one of your French girls.
And then all of a sudden I hear a squeal because he's realized that he hasn't brought his key card outside and that he's locked out.
No. That's not what happened. Another employee here needed a key card. I graced them with mine, but then I realized that I was not able to get in because I gave them mine. They came and let me in. I tried to hold the door to make you late. That's what actually happened.
Didn't have a key card. How long did you last holding the door to keep me from trying to get to the show on time, would you say?
I have the grip strength of a small ape, but I felt bad and I wanted to let you in, so maybe 4 to 5 seconds.
It was not that long at all. You seemed to cringe. You seemed to wither under the glare, and then you let me into the building.
He's had a long weekend.
I don't care. We haven't gotten a single bit of content out of the idea that you've been in Las Vegas for how many days at this point? One, why would you go for as long as you went? You're an insane person.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Are you owed content from Robert's vacation?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Squeeze the orange that is Bert.
You are coming off very poorly right now.
I don't care. That's fine. I'm used to it. That's how this thing is set up. I want content out of this just for the suffering of having to put up with him on a regular basis. I want something out of it.
Can I tell you the best $20 I spent all weekend?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. I thought he was going to keep talking. All right, so I'm in Vegas, and if you don't know, you've never been to Vegas, there is New Vegas and there is Old Vegas. I was in Old Vegas at the newest hotel Circa, but Old Vegas is attached to Fremont Street, which is kind of like where all the debaucherous things happen. You have little concerts and bars on the side, but then you also have street performers who will stand and do headstands on glasses of water, or they might be burlesque girls, or the man that I stumbled upon who for $20 you could kick him in the groin.
No.
Yes, I have the video.
No.
So this was the first night I was there. My wallet was still packed with money, and I said I would pay $20 for that.
Oh, my God.
To kick somebody in the groin? What kind of repressions are you working through?
You're telling me you have never, not once, wanted to just haul back and cartoon, Looney Tunes, Acme style, kick somebody in the groin?
Why, yes, in fact, every morning at 9:57 when somebody tries to jump scare me.
Lift them off the ground. That was my strategy. I'll show you guys the videos. Maybe I'll put it on Twitter if you guys are really good.
Oh, he's back for the clicks. I see this.
That's me, baby.
I see you.
So I paid the money, and my foot, I felt like I got a good, like it would have been good from 50, 55 maybe, and he no-sold me. He acted like I could have thrown a paper straw at him, and it would have made a bit larger effect than my actual kick.
There are no performance-enhancing materials in this situation? You don't think he was protected in any way?
Did you feel anything between your foot and his groin?
I was upset to feel a large plastic apparatus. It wasn't a cup. It was larger than a cup. It sat betwixt his upper thighs.
Betwixt is the word you're looking for.
Betwixt?
Betwixt.
No.
Betwixt? That sounds like a new candy bar.
Yeah.
Try the betwixt. Anyway, betwixt his legs, I kicked, and it did not work. A large, almost like shoulder pads that football players wear, but for his groin. And afterwards, I just shook his hand and I got it that he gets kicked in the groin by. I keep saying groin because I'm scared to say anything else.
Thank God you're scared of saying something into the microphone.
You should get your money back for that.
No. What do you mean? I think if there is a person willing to provide the service of stress relief by way of kicking him in the groin on a regular basis and all it costs you is $20, that person should get to wear whatever he wants. Whatever he wants in that circumstance. Because I do agree. Every once in a while, maybe you want to just haul off and kick somebody in the groin. But you can't do that anywhere but basically a football field on a regular basis.
Yeah, but then you just leave feeling bad about yourself because it seems as though it didn't affect the guy whatsoever.
So it's not enough for you to physically commit the act of kicking somebody in the groin. You want to see that human being wither on the ground in front of you.
Yes. Be honest, Robert. Did it affect you at all? Did you walk away feeling as though you have little shrimp legs when he didn't react whatsoever?
Little shrimp legs.
It's kind of like when you get a girlfriend at a gentleman's club and you're like, oh, she loves me, but she doesn't. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I really rocked that dude's world. But then the kick did not crumble him at all.
I really rocked that dude's world.
I felt like I kicked him with like chicken legs. Like it was not enough.
If it were any other circumstance and I said into the microphone, I rocked that dude's world, that would immediately end up as a drop that it would haunt me until the end of time. And instead, Bert's just going to get away with that.
That's what happens, man. When you're this good, you can't hide money, Buck. You can't hide money. Something else I found out about Vegas, that when you start betting, it does not matter what you're betting on. If you've never seen the sport, never watched a game, never known a player, you will become an expert. I became an expert at hockey. I became an expert at college baseball over the weekend. I don't know what it is, but I feel like you know everything there is to know. You have unlocked the unlimited knowledge tome when it comes to sports betting. I don't know what it is. If you guys have ever wanted to learn anything, bet on it.
Who's going to win the College World Series?
Oral Roberts.
Oh, don't make that noise again.
No, stop. That's the thinking sound.
It is. That's how I generally think about bets. Ask anything else. Ask me a question.
What do you got? What you got, Buck? Where does DeAndre Hopkins land?
Ooh, where does DeAndre Hopkins?
What do the betting odds say about DeAndre Hopkins?
Okay, if I was going to put my money, I'd go probably say Tennessee.
Oh, you heard it here first.
Put it on the sounder.
What kind of poor Swami imitation are you doing back there? What did you go to Vegas and think that you became? Because I can completely imagine you as Alan from The Hangover walking around there. Because now the man purse is fashionable. Those shoulder strap bags, those Lululemon bags that everybody wears.
Well, now they're just taking fanny packs and putting them as a crossbody sash.
Correct, but they're charging $150 for them because it's just a great business model.
Could not be me.
Either way, I imagine you wandering around the casino floor thinking that you're now an expert in everything and then losing every cent that you went with because Lucas put it on a poll while you were gone, given that I'm going to Vegas next weekend. You've just returned from Vegas after what I think has been 4 days there. Who is more likely to lose everything on a trip to Vegas, you or me? And the results, overwhelmingly, were me.
Yeah, I believe that.
Were they really?
Yes, overwhelmingly.
I wouldn't say over 59% to 41%.
Oh, really? Oh, it was way more lopsided when I think we wrapped up the show and I checked it. I was winning by 70% or something.
Yeah, it was 59 to 41.
Either way, I'm kind of surprised by that. Why you say you can see that?
Oh, yeah, I could see you losing everything. I could see you keep doubling down. Because, that's how you make your money back, right? You lose a $1 bet, then you have to put $2 down. You lose the $2 bet, you have to put $4 down. And maybe that happened to me. Maybe I got all the way up to 50. Maybe I had to keep doubling down. But I ended up with some money in my pocket. I came back to Nashville with paper money in my pocket. And I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to walk over to the camera. You can't hide money, folks. Put the money away. There's poor people around. Check this out. Look at all this cash. Ooh, money.
Are those singles?
No, they're 20s.
Money.
He's showing the 20s.
Money.
That is going to last. I give that the next 48 hours because you know what he's going to do with all that money that he's so proudly brought back from Vegas? He's going to do something dumb like buy a pool and then built it poorly.
It's like 2 to 3 20s that he folded multiple times over to make it look like it's more.
That's how you get double bets in Vegas, by the way. If you're like, cash for 100, but then you fold over two 20s
Please
and a
tell
10.
me you did not try to cheat anybody working in a Vegas casino.
You're going to get a bag thrown over your head.
That's why you got to grab your bets before they clear it. They try to take all your bets off. It's like, whoa. I think if you're like Hungry Hippos goes with those things. They don't count it. You actually get to keep your bet on the square.
What one piece of advice do you have for me before I go to Las Vegas next weekend?
He sent us the video of him kicking the guy. There's so many people just gathered around
Is it
watching.
of course. What are you going to do? Oh, it's in our group text. Should we watch it? Look at you. You look like you are.
Just an animal, dude.
No, you anything but. You look exactly like you belong on Fremont Street, and I mean that in the worst possible way.
I'll take it in the best possible
All
way.
right, I can't play the audio on
No,
this.
definitely not. Definitely not. Turn it down. Turn it down. Do not play that.
Oh, I mean, he waved his groin at you after you
taunted
him.
you.
He taunted you. He just hip thrust in your direction after you gave that man everything you had.
I'm telling you, everything I had.
It's your half-hearted flex that I like afterwards. You're not exuding a ton of confidence
Look
with
at
that
you.
flex.
No, but he's exuding so much confidence on the front end. He's telling people to step back. He's telling people, he's waving his arms. He says, it felt so I can read your lips, the satisfaction that you thought that you gave that man a swift kick to the groin. Instead, he thrust his genitals back at you.
I got stuff to do, Buck. So listen,
So does he, apparently.
Here's my one tip for you in Vegas. If you play craps, you can drink all day for free.
Okay. I'll take that advice. I can't imagine what you have to do in the shadows, but I'm going to send you there anyway. Get out of here.
See ya. Ha! Put it on black.
Well done. Not his finest moment.
He came back in one piece.
Disappointing. I'd have preferred him in multiple pieces.
Proud of him.
615-737-1045. Should we do Vegas advice at some point before I go out there? I don't know. We'll see. Meanwhile, should we do a list, this or that, in the high-level sports radio content that you have become accustomed to around here? What is it about the New England Patriots situation or the Tennessee Titans situation that would most appeal to DeAndre Hopkins? So we're going to go down a list of categories, checking off which team has advantages for DeAndre Hopkins between the Titans and the Patriots. Lucas, do you have the list, or do you want me to do it?
No, you tell me. Between the Titans and Patriots, quarterback, who gets the check mark? Ryan Tannehill or Mac Jones?
Titans. And I think squarely.
I think most would agree. Titans. Point Titans.
Now, let's just, before we move on quickly, let's take a look at Mac Jones through these 2 years, all right? Because I feel like there's at least if you haven't been watching a ton of the Patriots, and the Patriots are on television enough, I think people see them on a regular basis, but like people know that Mac Jones struggled last year. People know that the New England Patriots offensive coordinator situation was an outright disaster. In fact, it's one of the dumbest things I've seen Bill Belichick do. Okay, but Mac Jones in his rookie year, we would consider Mac Jones to be a good player, somebody who looked like he was an ascending player out of those 5 first-round quarterbacks that were selected in that 2021 draft.
There was a regression.
He started all 17 games. The Patriots were 10-7. They made the postseason. How many touchdowns do you think Mac Jones had in his rookie year?
I'm going to say 25.
22 to 13. 22 to 13 interceptions. How many touchdowns do you think he had in 2022?
I'm going to say 14.
He did have 14 to 11
really?
interceptions.
That's amazing.
Yes, 22 to 14. His completion percentage went down. His total yardage went down. Of course, he was replaced for a game by Bailey Zappi. His yards per attempt went down. It was not a good year by any stretch of the imagination. QBR, whatever numbers you want to look at. Sacks went up. It was a difficult year for Mac Jones and the Patriots on offense. Now, that situation seems like it's going to be resolved by Bill O'Brien, or at least that seems to be their plan. Now, of course, if you've been paying attention to any DeAndre Hopkins stuff in the last couple of years, then you know that that's a relationship that is interesting. We'll get to play callers later on.
Wide receivers. So who is there to shoulder the load with DeAndre Hopkins? We know who it is for the Tennessee Titans. I don't need to sit here and list every receiver that plays for the Titans or is under contract. But for the New England Patriots, the wide receiver room consists of Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Parker, former second-round pick Tyquan Thornton, and Kendrick Bourne. I'll throw in Kayshon Boutte, the receiver they drafted out of LSU.
I forgot.
In this most recent draft. I also forgot until I pulled up the Patriots depth chart at wide receiver.
He was like a 6th-round pick, right?
Late round pick. We'll say, I believe, day 3, yeah. A ton of talent there. A guy who was expected to be a rocket ship last season and be a day 1 to day 2 type of pick. A lot of weird off-the-field stuff. Anyway, we'll say Juju, Devontae Parker, Tyquan Thornton, and Kendrick Bourne stacked up with the Titans wide receiver room. Where does Hopkins kind of fit in better? Which team can look at DeAndre Hopkins and say, we need you in this room more than X other team?
You know, that's an interesting way to phrase it, because can you imagine either team posing it to him like that? We need you here desperately. Do you imagine that Bill O'Brien or Bill Belichick is going to DeAndre Hopkins and saying, we desperately need you here to continue to, win at the level that the Patriots are accustomed or have become accustomed to, not in the last couple of years?
Okay.
But is that the way the position? I'm not saying
I don't know. Where does he slide in? Where does he slide in better? What's a better fit for DeAndre Hopkins in the wide receiver room? I would lean Tennessee when you look at the opportunity to have Hopkins and Burks as wide receiver 1 and 2, however you want to divvy that up, the slot in Kyle Phillips, the tight end in Chigakonkwo. For the Patriots, it's Hunter Henry.
I am going to say that with, because it's, man, that's an interesting question. Just skill position talent alone. It's tough for me to not say New England.
And it's also about which team is willing to pony up more money given their wide receiver situation.
Yes.
Who's in a more dire wide receiver situation, and who would be more willing to give up that money. It's insane when I hear that 2 for $20 for Nelson Aguilar is the most money the New England Patriots have ever given to a wide receiver.
2 for $22. And what he's
22.
referencing is a clip that we played to start the show from NBC Sports Boston, where the host with Albert Breer is citing that the biggest Patriots contract that has been ever given to a wide receiver is Nelson Aguilar, 2 years, $22 million. So that is pretty shocking. Now, I'd be curious to go back and look at the Titans situation, because I think Julio's going to skew that, and they ultimately ended up paying about $17 million for like 10 games of Julio, which, when you put it that way, just kind of makes you sick to your stomach. It's almost like the Vic Beasley numbers, except worse. I think that the Patriots skill position players, if I'm going to continue to cite that I don't know much because they haven't proven anything to anybody about the Titans, then I have to default to a more proven collection of skill position players. At least I know more about them. I've seen more of them in their career. Doesn't mean that they'll end up being better in New England. I'm just saying I know more about that group. I'm going to say by that judgment, I'd say New England.
That New England has a better group.
New England has a better group. I know more about. I trust more in what I at least I think I know more about what those players are.
So would that be Point Titans or Point Patriots?
Point Patriots.
Point Patriots, even though the opportunity is bigger in Tennessee.
Can you say that? Now, I think that him and Juju are more of a redundancy than DeAndre Hopkins and whomever else would be on the Titans roster, right? You remember Mike Herndon being in here and saying, I'd love Treylon Burks to pick up some things from a guy with the skill set of DeAndre Hopkins, but right now they're not a similar skill set. I think that Hopkins and Juju, big-bodied, long possession receivers, those are redundancies. Now, maybe that's the way that New England wants to play. Anyway.
So would that not be Point Titans?
No, I still think it's Point Patriots.
All right.
Like I said, I can't spend the whole offseason saying I don't know what these dudes are and then immediately say, yeah, but they're better.
Yeah. And we also can't speak for DeAndre Hopkins. So we don't know what his priorities are other than the money. Head coach. We know that there's the relationship there with Mike Vrabel. We believe it to be good versus Bill Belichick. With all those Super Bowls in a tumultuous last couple of years since Tom Brady walked out.
Man, I'm going to sound like such a homer if I say
you got to go Vrabel here, right?
What? But think about that. Whoa. Think definitively.
Yes. I'm going Vrabel here.
How quickly has that changed? But all right. Now, really think about what you've just said. Now, because I asked you this question last week, and I said, who's the best coach in the NFL right now? And you said Bill Belichick because you initially thought about sample size.
No, I said it's a different conversation. Who's the best coach of all time? Probably Bill Belichick. Who's the best head coach in the NFL right now? Not Bill Belichick.
Andy Reid.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to look at me and tell me Bill Belichick is talked about in the same way now than he was 5, 6, 7 years ago?
No, but I don't even make it 5, 6, 7 years ago. Make it 2 or 3. Like, we are not that far removed from him being thought of every year as the best coach in the NFL. Don't 6 or 5 or 7 years ago.
Okay, 4 years ago.
4 years ago. No, I mean, this it's happened fast, very fast. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm also going to say Vrabel, but not just because I've just seen Bill Belichick do one of the dumbest things I've ever seen him do in his career with the offensive coordinator situation, but because everybody I talk to that has been in New England's system, that has played for the Patriots, that has been a part of what it is that they do there, in an honest moment, they all sound like they are miserable. And that the winning covered it up a lot. They've done a lot more losing here in the last 3 years, than they did in the previous 20.
That's what I'm saying.
No, I understand what you're saying, but think about how quickly. You're making it a much larger sample size on how that turned on Bill Belichick than I think it actually is. We're talking about really a 3-year span here.
Did players go to the New England Patriots to play for Bill Belichick because of a relationship with Bill Belichick or to win a Super Bowl?
To win a Super Bowl.
So if you take that out of the equation, the Patriots are in no way contenders, then I'm sorry, I think this is easy. If you're putting the two head coaches next to each other based on DeAndre Hopkins, the relationships he has or doesn't have with both, and what would be more appealing to him, I think it's Vrabel.
Let's pause this exercise. I think we put a stop right there and we come back to it later on because I know we got SEC observations. We got the dumbest thing in sports this week. So we'll do those things coming up next and we'll come back to the DeAndre Hopkins point-counterpoint discussion. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. So we are going to have some clarity. Actually, in fact, we're getting leaks, aren't we? I don't know how responsible it is to run with the schedule release leaks. For those of you unaware of the situation, that schedule release show, is that coming up tonight?
Tonight at 6 p.m. on SEC Network, we will have the full 2024 SEC schedule.
But the leaks are already starting. Now, I struggle with this because I spent all NFL offseason telling you, hey, the schedule release leaks, don't pay attention to them.
Yeah.
Because right when the schedule comes out, somebody's just going to pop up on Twitter and say, ha, 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 none of these dates are real. Got you, mother bleepers, just like the last time around. So do we have any credibility around the leaks, or is it just being leaked?
Well,
Let's talk about SEC, baby. Let's talk about the SEC. Let's talk about Nick Saban and Josh Heupel in the SEC. Let's talk about SEC, baby. Let's talk about the SEC. Let's talk about Brian Kelly and Greg Sankey in the SEC. Let's talk about SEC.
so what we know that we can quantifiably say is certain is that every single SEC team will play Texas and Oklahoma in 2024. The league has essentially come out and said that.
Yep.
So that's not a leak. That's not reported by somebody from whatever outlet. That is the conference telling us. Peter Burns was tweeting about it of SEC Network. The breaking news a couple of hours ago said each of the SEC teams will play. I'm sorry, I said both Texas and Oklahoma. I misspoke. Each of the SEC teams will play either Texas or Oklahoma once in the upcoming 2024
okay, that
season.
is different.
Yes, that is different. My apologies. So every SEC team will have the Longhorns or the Sooners, and the home or away will be announced later on SEC Network. So what do we want to see from the schedule release coming up later today? We'll talk about what we want to see from a Tennessee perspective later on in the show. But otherwise, for me, it's matchups we haven't seen in years. And I'm talking about decades in the regular season. There was a leak from On3 Sports today reporting that Georgia will travel to Alabama in 2024, which would be certainly fascinating. I cannot tell you the last time Georgia went to Alabama, which is a product of divisions, and a good reason why divisions are no longer going to be a thing in the SEC and moving forward largely across the board in college football. But look, I want to see Texas play Arkansas. I want to see that Southwest rivalry get renewed. I want to see LSU go to Oklahoma. That's never happened before. LSU has never played in Norman. And then you have to look at where programs will be. This is not for this season, right? This is for 2024. So how fascinating would a Texas-Tennessee matchup in 2024 be? With Arch Manning presumably as the starter in his second year at Texas, and Nico Iamaleava presumably as the starter at Tennessee in his second year with the Vols. UT versus UT, that whole thing. I would love to see that in 2024, given the quarterback situations.
I think, and, this is just speculation, I think there would have to be a high percentage chance of them trying to make that work, of them putting that in this schedule. I think there has to be some high level of interest, not just from the powers that be, not just from the universities, because that'd be a big money game, but from the people who would be responsible for broadcasting that game. I think there would be a ton of interest in that.
I mentioned LSU having never gone to Oklahoma. In 2024, Brent Venables will be in year 3 at OU. Brian Kelly will be in year 3 at LSU. Obviously, those two had a very different start to their tenures last season. Brian Kelly winning the West, Brent Venables struggling to get into a bowl game and then losing to Florida State in the process. So what point will those head coaches be at in their tenures in year 3, and how much of an advantage would it be for Oklahoma to host LSU in Norman? Texas has never played at Georgia.
Well, wait, before you move on, the Brent Venables thing is honestly so interesting, because I was thinking about this the other day. I was listening to, I can't remember which college football podcast I was listening to, but they were talking about Oklahoma specifically. They were talking about Brent Venables, and they were kind of saying, all right, how real were the results of year 1, and how much of that is actually a reflection on Brent Venables? Because the thing about Oklahoma under Brent Venables is the defense still
was awful.
Awful. I mean, awful. that's the thing that's supposed to be his bread and butter. That's one of the biggest ills of Lincoln Riley, and a lot of times why Oklahoma and USC under Lincoln Riley until the foreseeable future, until such time as he feels the need to rectify it. It's why they get undone in big spots from time to time. But it was so bad at Oklahoma under that coach that it's almost like, all right, something's wrong. Like something beyond this is his first year, the personnel might not be right. Like something is not going correctly here in a way that to hear Pate talk yesterday about Miami, and I'm sorry, remind me the name of the former Michigan offensive coordinator.
Gaddis.
Josh Gaddis. Josh Gaddis in year one under Mario Cristobal, all the money that was paid out for him. He's the coordinator of the year in college football. They come down to Miami, and Mario Cristobal, in a very honest moment with Josh Pate, when asked, how early on did you know that was not going to work? He said, yeah, pretty early on. But what am I going to do? Am I going to fire a coordinator 3 games in? Those are the kind of things that I think have to be accounted for in the middle of all this, that I think it's going to make it more interesting.
But what about the flip side of that with Brent Venables? When you say, okay, that's concerning. Brent Venables has built his entire career, obviously, on defense, elite defenses at Clemson, at Oklahoma, when he was the defensive coordinator there under Stoops. But also, is there a comforting aspect of that where if you're an Oklahoma fan, you think, okay, it's year one. Is it almost better that the defense was so bad because you think, well, that can't possibly be what is sustained over the course of Brent Venables' career? The defense bottomed out in year one. You can only really go up from there. And Brent Venables has never had a stretch in his career with the defense as bad as it was against Oklahoma. So there's more logic to say that the defense will improve greatly under Venables at Oklahoma than to say, oh, God, the defense was awful in year one. This was a terrible hire. Brent Venables, it's just not translating as a head coach.
No, I don't disagree. And I think that if you're Brent Venables, it probably drove you insane, drove you absolutely mad last year to see the product that defense was putting out on the field. But you come into it this year looking around and being like, oh, what's the thing that coaches hate most? Expectations?
Yeah.
You mean I have zero expectations around my defense when the whole reason that I'm being talked about or have been talked about as one of the best head coaching candidates before landing that Oklahoma job, a job that I get to go back to, is because of the defense? Oh, cake. That, at least, how I would look at it if I was Brent Venables. I don't know that that's going to be his philosophical approach.
Venables has been a candidate to be a head coach for many, many years, but I remember this conversation around Jeremy Pruitt, who was arguably the best defensive play caller in all of college football at Alabama and at Florida State in that 2013 national championship winning season. So when he came to Tennessee, you thought, okay, well, you're going to get a good defense. That obviously did not play out. Tennessee had good moments defensively. They had a good staff. They had talent here and there, but it just didn't all come together. Why? Because Jeremy Pruitt couldn't run a program. Jeremy Pruitt was trying to manage every single aspect of the program. He was trying to coach every position of the defense, and you just can't do that. So how much more of a grasp does Brent Venables have on how an elite program is run? You would imagine better than Pruitt. Pruitt was around some great football teams, obviously won multiple national titles, but his career was certainly shorter than Brent Venables is at this point. Venables has been in this game a long, long time. So if Venables has all of those other things kind of managed better than Pruitt did, which is not a very high bar, then it stands to reason the defense will improve greatly. Oklahoma in year 2 under Venables is going to be fascinating in 2023. So who Texas and Oklahoma get matched up with is going to be really interesting, and just how many secondary rivalries they can really preserve. We know the Iron Bowl, the Egg Bowl, those are all going to be there, even if they were to go to a permanent 8-game slate with only one permanent opponent. Those are all still going to be there. But Greg Sankey said at spring meetings, we're going to preserve as many secondary rivalries, the Alabama versus Tennessees of the world, as possible. So just how many of those are they able to actually contain?
Those are the SEC observations. That was a good discussion. Well done. Let's do something that is decidedly less well done. Let's do the dumbest thing in sports this week. Give us your submissions. The people have things to win, don't they? What can they win if they give us the dumbest thing in sports this week?
Part of Dad Week, a family fun pack to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix weekend for Saturday, family fun pack to take dad and the family in that first weekend of August. So you got to give us the dumbest thing in sports. Listener comprehension. It's not caller 5. You got to give us the dumbest thing in sports.
What do you mean you just sideswiped the listeners that way?
I don't want to sideswipe the listeners, but I cannot tell you how many calls I fielded this week. Right? What's your name? All right, you got a dumbest thing in sports or whatever it might be. Oh, no, it's not caller 5. No, you got to work for it.
This is a crusade that I have been on since the radio station hired me. They said, no, you can do caller 5 for all of these things. I said, for what? I have 3 hours of radio. I want something out of this. Give us the dumbest thing in sports this week.
It is 11:03. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Vegas Golden Knights are Stanley Cup champions, routing the Florida Panthers 9-3 at home to win the series in 5 games. The 9 goals is tied for the most ever by one team in a Stanley Cup final game. Mark Stone with a hat trick on the night. It is the final week of voluntary OTAs for the Titans. Select players and Titans head coach Mike Vrabel will speak at the podium today after practice in the noon hour. You can hear it live right here on The Zone as the pursuit of free agent wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins continues this week. The 31-year-old will visit the Patriots today and tomorrow after visiting with the Titans last weekend. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour underway. Welcome in. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. Hope yours is going great so far. 615-737-1045. Jump in because it's the dumbest thing in sports this week. We'll get to yours just in a little bit. You can win a prize pack as well for the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. Lucas will give you more details on that here in just a moment. We've got some DeAndre Hopkins discussions to have. We'll get back to our checklist. What makes sense for DeAndre Hopkins on the Titans versus what makes sense for DeAndre Hopkins on the Patriots, given that those are the two teams currently pursuing him and his services. But first, we got to do the dumbest thing in sports this week. Go ahead.
Let's be honest. You've already seen something this week that made you say,
What the is this?
That's bullshit.
What the hell? Give me some more now.
something so mind-numbingly idiotic that you just want to get it off your chest.
Dumber than a second coat of paint.
Some idiot.
You are really dumb. For real.
It's the dumbest thing in sports this week on the Buck Rising Show.
What do they win, Lucas, if they give us the dumbest thing in sports this week?
You have a chance to win Dad a family 4-pack of tickets to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix Family Fun Day, Saturday, August 5th, because it is Dad's week. Presented by Chattanooga Whiskey on 104.5 The Zone. This year, give Dad the best. Chattanooga Whiskey awarded Best Craft Producer of 2023 by Whiskey Magazine. For more info, visit 1045thezone.com/dadsweek, 615-737-1045.
Lovely. So I mentioned at the end of the show that I didn't want to talk about Baby Gronk on the radio show. And then I remembered that we had the dumbest thing in sports on Wednesday, and I said, oh, perfect. Because it is continually the dumbest thing in sports. Now, the thing that has changed between the time that we ended yesterday and the time that we have gotten to this particular segment today is video released of one of his interviews, where it is he, Baby Gronk, the, shall we call it, is it an internet sensation? I don't know if it's quite a sensation if the dad is the one trying to create the sensation. But do you know the kid's actual name?
No.
Madden San Miguel. Madden is in the video game. Madden San Miguel. So he's a 10-year-old, quote-unquote, influencer from Dallas. He's gone viral. He's got youth football highlights. He's interacting with celebrities like Livy Dunn, Nick Saban, Shaq. He's going around to college football programs. He's taking, recruiting, pictures with their jerseys. And his father is the one who's pushing all of this. He's DMing various outlets trying to get Baby Gronk interviews. He's trying to create a viral sensation around his son. Now, there's video of one of these interviews that the hosts accepted Baby Gronk on. And the son is appearing with the father. The son is being asked questions. The dad interrupts the son from answering the questions and then feeds him the answer that Baby Gronk should give. So instead of answering like a normal 10-year-old, he's giving answers to questions like the host asking, "Are you him?" And Baby Gronk's response is, very diplomatic. He says yes. And then the dad looks at the son and says, no, this is how you answer the question. Quote, man, what kind of question is that? You seen my Instagram? Now, whatever. You want to parent your kid however you want to parent your kid. I don't care what kind of etiquette and manners you parent with. It's not my job to raise your children, nor is it my job.
Story a week ago on Lionel Messi joining Inter Miami. So Messi's contract was up with PSG. And my dumbest thing in sports this week is Barcelona president Joan Laporta, because Messi's options on the table were go take almost $2 billion to go play in Saudi Arabia, $2 billion for like a 3-year deal to go play in Saudi Arabia, return to Barcelona, the club that made him, obviously, or come to MLS, do something different, join Inter Miami. His first preference was to go back to Barcelona, to keep playing at that level in the Champions League, in Spain. Barcelona has been in a very dire financial situation over the last few years. They can't pay their players, was a big reason why Messi had to leave to go to PSG in France. Messi did not want to go through with that again. He did not want to have to go into a situation where Barcelona would have to sell off players, lower other players' wages to make room for Lionel Messi. He didn't want to deal with that. So he announced his decision to go to Inter Miami. And Barcelona put out this statement from President Joan Laporta on Messi's decision to join Inter Miami. It says, quote, President Laporta understood and respected Messi's decision to want to compete in a league with fewer demands, further away from the spotlight and the pressure he has been subject to in recent years. Both Joan Laporta and Jorge Messi also agreed to work together to promote a proper tribute from Barca fans, yada, yada, yada. But that backhanded statement from Laporta, respecting Messi's decision to compete in a league with fewer demands, further away from the spotlight, and away from the pressure he has been subject to in recent years. As if the reason that Messi going to Miami is not because of Barcelona's disastrous financial situation. No, it's because Messi, he can't play. He doesn't want to play at this level anymore.
That's called spin, kids.
Not saying MLS is at the level of La Liga or Champions League soccer. That's not what I'm saying at all. But little tone deaf there from Barcelona president Joan Laporta. The only person he has to look to is the mirror to figure out why Messi is not coming to play for his club again.
615-737-1045. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? Let's go to Christy in Murfreesboro up next. Hey, Christy.
Yes.
What's the dumbest thing in sports this week?
Well, I think that the dumbest thing in sports is the PGA Live merger.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a slap in the face for those golfers that stayed loyal to PGA. Maybe they'll be compensated later, but it's just a sad thing for those Rory McIlroys and Justin Thomases. So,
it's a great one. Thank you for the nomination, Christy. 615-737-1045. Have you seen this discussion kind of starting up that there, and I don't know if it's being made by people who are credible, if it's just being made by people who are voicing their opinion on the discussion that's out there, but like the idea that the PGA players who didn't take the Live money should be financially compensated in some way, shape, or form because now they are being forced to join up with a Live kind of entity or being lumped into a Live-esque entity that's being funded by the Saudis. I understand the sentiment because, of course, they've been done horrendously here. Done horrendously. But I would say that the Live guys, right, wrong, or indifferent, they took a risk. It paid off. They won. The people who did not take that financial risk or did not take that PR risk or all these other things, whether you want to say that they were morally correct, I don't necessarily think that that should mean that they're entitled to more money because they turned down the money that they were initially being offered. That's just the way that I would look at it. But I understand why other people wouldn't. We'll take more of your phone calls on the dumbest thing in sports. We'll continue to do our DeAndre Hopkins checklist. Who makes more sense for the veteran wide receiver? Titans or Pats coming up next. Welcome back to the show. Dumbest thing in sports this week, 615-737-1045. You tell us what the dumbest thing in sports is. You will have the chance to win a family 4-pack for the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix Family Fun Zone on Saturday of the race itself. Remember, it's Friday through Sunday, August 4th through the 6th. It's a great time at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. Go to musiccitygp.com for your tickets today. So we are also going to get back into this checklist situation. Titans and Pats, section by section, position by position, coach by coach. Who makes the most sense for DeAndre Hopkins between the Titans and the Patriots? We'll get back to that here in just a second. Eric in Nashville, though, is next. Hey, Eric.
Hey, guys. There are, again, several different ones I could go with, but this is the one I'm settling on. So over the weekend, Sue Bird was honored in a retirement ceremony as she retired from the WNBA. Her wife, Megan Rapinoe, gets up and says that she considers her the greatest athlete that covers all sports, and then she did a bye like a GOAT, considering her a GOAT. Listen, she got roasted over social media and deservedly so. She's not even the greatest Bird, which is Larry Bird, which somebody said. And I don't even consider her the greatest athlete in the WNBA. I know you love your wife, but please, that was just an insane take. That's my dumbest thing in sports. Guys, y'all take care, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you for the call, Eric. It's I get you're trying to play things up for your significant other in that spot, but yeah, Megan Rapinoe might have been a little hyperbolic there. Philip, last one for the dumbest thing in sports this week. Go ahead, Philip.
Hey, guys. How you doing today?
Great.
As a VFL and the guy that bleeds orange for the Vols, my dumbest thing in sports is the NCAA baseball committee and Hattiesburg getting the super regional and then going crazy over Applebee's and all of that. Hey, listen, they were 0-5 against SEC teams, but they acted like they were going to take Tennessee to the woodshed down there in Hicksville, and they did not. I'll tell them right now they are 1-7 now against the SEC, but let's go to Applebee's today, boys. That's my dumbest thing in sports.
Go get you some mozzarella sticks, Philip.
Okay. Explain to me the Applebee's.
All right, so our friend, Mike Wilson of the Knoxville News Sentinel, when covering the decision to host the Super Regional in Hattiesburg as opposed to Knoxville, he made an offhand comment. You know Mike's sense of humor about there's not even an Applebee's in Hattiesburg. Southern Miss fans jumped all over him.
He got dragged?
And then it became just a social media war between Southern Miss and Tennessee fans over Applebee's. So, yes, that became a big thing that Mike Wilson said. You know, I always struggle with this word. Facetiously.
Oh, yeah, that was not how that came out.
No, not even a little bit. That was terrible.
I thought you were talking about the band Fish.
But facetiously.
Easy.
And he got jumped for it. So it's become kind of a running joke now about Applebee's.
All right, two things. We need the next time Mike Wilson makes an appearance on the radio show, he must do so from the local Applebee's. Two, why do you insist on saying... Now, I've had to struggle with this myself at times. Have you not been scared enough of the word facetiously to stop saying it into a microphone when you know you're going to struggle?
What else would I say? Well, you worried that would turn into something that could get us fired?
Yes, every day. Every day. Every time one of the three of us turns our microphones on a regular basis, I fear it will be the last time that any of us has the option to turn on a microphone.
Although, can I say, and I love Philip, and I respect Philip's opinion, I did get a little exhausted by the whining. As a Tennessee alum, the whining from my Tennessee brethren over choosing Hattiesburg as a super regional.
Oh, see, I think it's funny. I want to give them the tickets.
I'm down to give Philip the tickets.
Okay.
Everybody was banging the drum, though, about RPI and resume and strength of schedule. But I have yet to see anything official from the NCAA in that being the primary reason for selecting a host town as a super regional host.
No, stadium was bigger.
More capacity. It's that simple.
Yeah.
The weather has nothing to do with it. Like, it sucks that those games got delayed and game one had to get suspended, and the weather in Knoxville was beautiful. I get that. But that has nothing to do with where they choose to host the Super Regional. So I did get a little exhausted by that over the course of the last few days.
When's the last time you've eaten at an Applebee's?
I was about to ask you the same thing.
Oh, God.
I bet you've never. Have you ever? If I had to put money on it, I would say you've
You
never.
don't think I've ever been to an Applebee's?
No, that seems beneath you.
In my entire
life. It seems
life?
like you think it would be beneath you, even though it's not.
Well, listen.
Applebee's has its place.
If Applebee's would like to be the title sponsor of the Buck Rising Show, then we would welcome their participation. I would eat at Applebee's every day of the week if I had to. I would think about it.
I don't know the last time I went to an Applebee's. Probably a few years ago.
You are correct in saying I've never eaten at an Applebee's.
I figured. You ever eaten at a Chili's?
I have eaten at a Chili's, but I have not eaten at a Chili's. You'll appreciate this one. I haven't eaten at a Chili's in this country.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Chili's is better. Like most fast food. It's weird. Why everywhere else does our fast food places so much better than we do as a country. But yes, the only Chili's, it's funny, the only Chili's I've eaten is in Egypt.
That's a good poll question. What's the most prominent American chain that you've eaten in another country, and how was it?
Oh, it's going to be McDonald's. McDonald's is going to win that 10 times.
I guess
Everywhere in the world has a McDonald's.
I went to TGI Fridays in the São Paulo airport in Brazil last summer. That was interesting.
There is also a very nice TGI Fridays in Cairo. I've been to the TGI Fridays there. So yeah, it'd probably be that. But like, I couldn't tell you last time I've eaten at a TGI Fridays. I mean, certainly at some point in like your childhood, right? It's like going to Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
Oh, Chuck E. Cheese. Isn't there a karaoke bar around here that has Chuck E. Cheese like animatronic figures? I can't think of the name of the bar. I keep seeing people post it on social media like it's someplace that people would want to go on a regular basis. It would just scare the holy bleep out of me.
That is nightmare fuel.
I don't understand why people enjoy stuff like that. Anyway, speaking of things that I don't know why anybody would enjoy, the New England Patriots. Why would you want to play for them? If you're DeAndre Hopkins, why would you want to play for them more than the Tennessee Titans? Well, the answer, of course, to all of your questions is money. But if the money is equal, we are going through a checklist of the things on the Titans and the Patriots, what benefits DeAndre Hopkins the most? The quarterbacks, the coaches. So far, we have done quarterbacks, wide receivers, and head coach specifically. Lucas would favor the Titans on all three of those things. In terms of the quarterback, in terms of the skill position players, in terms of the coach.
I just think there's more of a need in the wide receiver room for Hopkins in Tennessee than there is in New England.
I think both. I think there is more need for a player like DeAndre Hopkins in Tennessee than there is in New England. I think both desperately need a wide receiver, and it doesn't matter who it is. So I would give the Pats the edge in the skill position players just because I've seen those guys play more. I know more about them. I've seen Juju Smith's career. I understand what Juju is. I don't know what the Titans. I don't know if Kyle Phillips is any good. I don't know if Traylon Burks is going to be good. I don't know if either of those guys are going to be healthy. I don't know if Racey McMath is going to have 4 career catches for the rest of his life. That kind of thing.
I'll concede because DeAndre Hopkins will be the most accomplished receiver between Titans or Patriots if he lands at either one.
Yeah. So, quarterback, wide receiver, head coach, where do you want to go next?
Offensive coordinator. Patriots, Bill O'Brien. Complicated history between the two. Obviously, he traded Hopkins to Arizona for David Johnson and a ham sandwich. Tim Kelly, another former offensive coordinator of Hopkins in Houston, coached him in 2019. You imagine that relationship is not as complicated, but we obviously can't really speak to the details of that relationship. I have seen, who was it that was reporting this week that things are okay?
Diana. So I've got the tweet in front of me. DeAndre Hopkins, and by the way, Diana's going to be on the radio show next week. We're hoping to have her Tuesday, so we'll keep you updated with that. DeAndre Hopkins expected to visit with the Patriots later today and tomorrow morning, per sources. For those who have raised some concerns about Pat's offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien and Hopkins' relationship in Houston, sources have shared there's no animosity at all. So one would think if there was animosity, one, he wouldn't be taking the free agent visit there. And two, that Bill O'Brien is at a point in his career where he just needs good players. They need good players. Bill O'Brien needs to figure out a way to get Mac Jones off the mat, basically. And I don't know how much longer Bill Belichick is going to want to do this, but I mean, I could see a very real situation where Bill O'Brien ends up as the head coach of the Patriots in a couple of years.
And DeAndre Hopkins had some really good years with Bill O'Brien as his play caller.
Yes, that's the key. He has had one successful season. They've had one season together, Tim Kelly and DeAndre Hopkins. It was not, by any stretch of the imagination, DeAndre Hopkins' career year in terms of receiving, in terms of targets, in terms of anything, but it was still a very productive year for a productive offense in 2019 with that Houston Texans team that was eliminated by the Chiefs in the divisional round. I am going to give that point to Bill O'Brien. I think that Bill O'Brien has a longer track record. Again, it doesn't mean that he's going to end up being a better offensive coordinator. It doesn't mean that Tim Kelly isn't going to have a better offense this year. But I think if we're going on things that I know Bill O'Brien to be a very, very successful play caller in the NFL, regardless of what his talent looks like. I've seen him do a lot of things that he has no business doing with a lot worse wide receivers than DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going to give that to B.O.B.
Yeah, and if there's not animosity there, like Diana is saying, I definitely think I'd agree.
All right, so I'm even. I got 2 for the Titans, 2 for the Pats.
Division. Opportunity to compete. Patriots in the AFC East with the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, and the New York Jets now with Aaron Rodgers, and the Titans in the AFC South.
I think the Bills are looking a little fraudy. We'll talk about some Bills drama here in just a little bit. Because Stephon Diggs is, do we have any update as to whether he's practicing today or not?
I haven't seen anything.
Okay. Because as of yesterday, he was at the building but decided to leave before practice. So there's that.
It's a weird situation.
They were showing some pretty big flaws down the stretch, Buffalo was. Not saying that Buffalo is, that New England can't be better than Buffalo this year. I would still give that benefit, though, to the Titans in the AFC South. The Jags, it looks like it's their division to lose. I am still not, 100% certain on things that I know versus things that I don't know. In the same way that I kind of have a big question mark around Mac Jones, I have a slightly smaller question mark around Trevor Lawrence because there's still a lot of variance there. So I'm going to say that the AFC South is the easier division, it looks like, to be had right now. I'm going to say that benefits the Titans.
This isn't even a discussion to me. The Titans have a better shot to win the AFC South with DeAndre Hopkins than the Patriots would to win the AFC East with DeAndre Hopkins. It's worlds apart for me. Not even close.
It's assuming that Miami is going to, find the success that they had. It's one half of one season, and I know the Tua stuff is complicated, but it's one half of one season for Miami. Looking like they can hang with the big boys. The Jets, I understand Aaron Rodgers is there. I understand that Garrett Wilson made a lot of bad quarterbacks look better than they deserve to. I understand that Garrett Wilson was still productive with a lot worse quarterbacks than Aaron Rodgers. But that's a situation.
I don't know. I have no clue.
Leathery Tim McGraw.
How many Tim McGraw songs DeAndre Hopkins can name?
In a suite that's probably not going to be their stadium for that much longer, though it will be the stadium that DeAndre Hopkins likely ends his career in.
Do you think DeAndre Hopkins can name more Tim McGraw songs or more Tim McGraw movies / shows?
Oh. I might say the latter, but that's because his IMDb has been growing in the last couple of years.
The Blind Side, Friday Night Lights.
1883, you mentioned.
Great show. Talented man, Tim McGraw.
Yeah, yeah, despite the leatheriness. I love Boston. I love that I get to visit Boston and don't have to live in Boston. I think my opinion of Boston would be much different if I lived there year-round as opposed to getting to scurry back to Tennessee where it's warm far more of the year than it is in Boston. I don't know I don't know what kind of cultural interest DeAndre Hopkins has. I think if you're a history junkie, there's few better places in the world than Boston. I've loved how many times the Titans have played up there because stay in a business district downtown. You can walk around everywhere. I can't remember the name of the market in the middle of the business district, but there's just so many great historical things. Nashville's still a better city. Year-round, Nashville a better city. In your early to mid-30s, Nashville a better city. For sure.
Also closer to home for DeAndre. Now, I don't know where his family lives at this point, but I know he's from Clemson, South Carolina. And if they are still there, obviously Nashville would be closer.
Now, Boston is one of the biggest cities in the country. Boston is obviously an incredible sports town. You are going to be subjected to a lot more scrutiny, but you also, you're going to be in a much longer tradition of winning, though that winning has been substantially less in the last couple of years. I would still say Nashville over Boston, not just because I live here, but because I've been to both. I've not lived in Boston, but I've been to Boston enough times to know that I would rather live in Nashville.
So our final tally If the money's even, is Titans 4, Patriots 2.
Even optimistically, even if I'm to give the Patriots the benefit of the doubt on the skill position players, and I'm not saying that they are better. I'm just saying that I know more about them than I do the Titans. It's really not close. But again, how much can be made up for financially?
Did you see Jeff Howe's report on this today of The Athletic?
No, I haven't seen the latest.
He wrote today, the free agent, talking about Hopkins, is planning to visit Gillette Stadium on Thursday, and there's optimism the two sides can find a way to reach an agreement, according to a person with knowledge of the matter. Says there is no denying Hopkins can still be one of the most dominant receivers in the league when he's on the field, but the two sides have to decide whether they're a good match for one another. And it sounds like there is some motivation to find that common ground. That is from Jeff Howe of The Athletic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the motivation for Hopkins is, can you pay me more? The motivation is for New England is, can we get a better offense? Can we salvage Mac Jones? Can we do some meaningful winning while he's still inexpensive? Man, I just, how much money is it worth to him? At this point in his life, and I can't speak for the guy. I don't know what it's like to have that kind of money. I imagine that once you get to a certain point in your career, that the difference between, $1 to $2 million, $2 to $3 million may not be as vast as it seems for the rest of us. But damn, would it be a hard sell for me to imagine him in New England, even with that Jeff Howe reporting.
Just their lack of history in paying receivers.
2 years, $22 million is the biggest contract for a wide receiver that they've ever handed out. Think about that.
For Nelson Aguilar. I don't know what's more
Aguilar.
shocking, that number or that it's for Aguilar.
And again, just because they haven't spent on the wide receivers, they've been able to get away with not spending on wide receivers in a long time, or at any point, because of the level of quarterback play that they've had for a good portion of their existence. It doesn't feel like that's the case anymore. So at some point, they're going to have to play the game the way that every other NFL team that hasn't had Tom Brady for 20 years has had to play, which is at some point you have to cash in on a skill position player. David in Lebanon is next.
Good morning, guys. How are y'all today?
Great.
The man needs to realize what he could do for this town and for himself. Of course, King Henry is the man, but if he comes here and just does half of what he's done before, the town of Nashville will go nuts. I mean, he'll make Tannehill look amazing. He'll make himself a town hero. And if he wants to go out on a good note, that's what he needs to look at.
Well, David, can I ask you the follow-up then? Do you think if he was to have success, do you think it would be more impactful in Nashville or in Boston?
Boston is always going to be Brady. Boston, yes, if you've got a great player in Boston, of course, they're going to idolize him.
Okay.
But I would much rather be in a tax-free, no state tax, and he would love it here. I mean, it would be amazing to his career and to the city of Nashville.
Thank you for the call. It does sound slightly like moving of goalposts.
They'll definitely turn on you quicker in Boston.
They will turn on you either way. There are not as many Titans fans as there are Patriots fans. It is a smaller market, but they are just as vicious when things don't go to plan, I would say. So I would not, it's just louder in Boston and meaner. And, there's a proud, or not, I don't want to be reckless about Boston, but there are a lot of problematic things about Boston. I think it's an interesting question, like legacy-wise, how he ends his career. Does that matter to him at all? Again, I can't answer that question. I don't know this dude like that. But it's something to think about. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Speaking of wide receiver drama, the Buffalo Bills, what's going on with Stephon Diggs? We'll give you the latest on that coming up next. One of my favorite things to do during a commercial break is to catch up on tweets that you guys send us from segments. So, I'll see things 16 minutes after we're done talking about them, and they make me laugh. So there's just a string of things in my mentions. Buckethead, Pizza Hut in the Grand Caymans. No context, just a tweet. Trav K _ possibly. I've been to TGI Fridays in Seoul, Korea, also KFC. Just people sending us the biggest American food chains that they've been outside of the United States of America. Because we were talking about this earlier. The dispute that is now going on between Mike Wilson, our friend of the Knoxville News Sentinel. It's funny how we got there from that conversation. But a dispute between Southern Miss baseball fans, people from the general Hattiesburg, Mississippi area, and Vols beat writer for the KnoxNews.com, Mike Wilson, who is alleging that Hattiesburg, Mississippi doesn't even have an Applebee's. Anyway, so right when we get ready to talk about this wide receiver drama, the Stephon Diggs situation, Stephon Diggs is officially out on the practice field today. Now, it's been interesting to see some of the commentary around Stephon Diggs in particular. Did you see what Josh Allen had to say about him?
Yeah, some interesting quotes.
So the scenario, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Bill's mandatory minicamp was yesterday, or has been going on this week, open to the media yesterday. Stephon Diggs was not on the practice field. The coach, McDermott, was asked about it. He said he was very concerned that Stephon Diggs was not on the field. It was reported later that Stephon Diggs, Adam Schefter, was contacted by Stephon Diggs' agent, who told Schefter he's there. He was there this morning. He's going to be there for minicamp. Okay, well, where is he? Why is he not on the practice field? It was then later reported further that Stephon Diggs had been at the practice facility until practice began and then decided that he was going to leave with some undisclosed issue. It's not contract related, according to the reporting. If it's not contract related, what could it be? You have comments from Josh Allen saying that internally they're working on some things not football related. Josh Allen said he has no doubt that they'll figure out what's going on and that there's things that he, Josh Allen, could do better. Allen reiterated that he loves Diggs and has his back. So Allen goes on to say things that he could have done better, that maybe as an organization there are things that they could have communicated better. Allen declined to go into what he could be doing differently, saying that they'll keep that in-house. So whatever's going on with Stephon Diggs seems to be a personal situation, a personal internal situation that's causing friction among teammates. He's the only good wide receiver that they have. So anything that Josh Allen needs to do to make this dude happy at this point, it does seem like he needs to be catering a bit more to the best skill position player out there on the field, who is reportedly out there on the practice field today.
I mean, he was visibly frustrated, Diggs, when their season ended last year, right? Gesturing on the sideline. Like, I remember that being a big story when the Bill season came to an end.
Sure. I will say, though, again, it's worth noting. You're right. But anytime, like, I see professional athletes, in a football game, take that emotion from the playing field to the sideline. You remember how big a deal people made. This is the only thing from in-season Hard Knocks with the Cardinals that got any run, which is surprising to me given the Cardinals last season. But DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray kind of barking at each other on the sideline a little bit. Some of the run-ins that Kyler Murray had with Cliff Kingsbury on the sideline. Like, stuff like that happens on the sideline all the time. There's a million different things going on. It's loud, it's noisy, emotions and tensions are high. So that kind of stuff I tend to discount a little bit. But he is a very fiery personality. He's always been very, I think prone to emotional outbursts. Sounds too extreme, but he's just an emotional dude. He reacts very strongly to whatever the situation might be. So whatever has happened here seems to be at least resolved enough in the immediate to get him back out on the practice field, but it's worth paying attention to.
He joined the Dan Patrick Show after the season ended in February. He talked about the nightmare ending to their season, how things kind of fell apart, having words with Josh Allen on the sideline. So there was a ton of frustration there. I don't know what would have carried over. We have no idea.
Right. Yeah. And if Josh Allen isn't going to comment on it, I'm sure Stephon Diggs at some point will be asked about it, and we can move on from there. Speaking of attendance at practice and things like that, so it's the last week of voluntary stuff for the Titans. A lot of teams doing mandatory minicamp this week. Titans did it last week. And there was a couple of players who were not available to participate, but were physically at the facility. Christian Fulton was one of those players who was not available to participate, had not been available to participate at any point this offseason, but had been at the facility. He's practicing today. Now, that's not been made official because practice hasn't officially ended. And normally, I wouldn't be able to tell you that. But if you go look at the Titans' social media feed, they have images of players walking out onto the practice field for the day. And one of the players who's walking out onto the practice field for the day is the aforementioned Christian Fulton. So whatever he's doing today, how long he participates in practice, we'll find out more details after it concludes, and you'll start to see tweets from my Titans media colleagues start to fly. And by the way, we'll carry the press conferences. The last time you'll hear from Mike Vrabel or the players until training camp at this point, or at least in a press conference setting. Whatever they do in their off season is up to them if they want to get in front of a microphone or not. But the last time you'll hear from them in a football setting will be here in just about 15 minutes. So I'm sure there will be questions for Mike about DeAndre Hopkins. I'm sure that he will be not interested in taking those questions, but there's going to be a lot of different things to talk about. And the question I want to ask you coming up next, what have you learned most about the Tennessee Titans through this offseason? From the way that this season ended in Jacksonville to where we are now, preparing to conclude what is probably the last practice of this offseason before training camp on Wednesday, June the 14th. What have you learned the most about this team, this franchise, this organization, your coaches, your teams, your players, your front office, whatever? 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Titans back on the field for the final week of voluntary OTAs. We will hear from select players and head coach Mike Vrabel coming up in about 15 minutes. You can hear that press conference live right here on The Zone. Teron Davenport of ESPN reporting that Christian Fulton, the Titans corner, was back for a portion of practice at OTAs. No sign of Traylon Burks, Derrick Henry, Racey McMath, or Nick Westbrook-Akine, among others, including Kevin Byard and Jeffrey Simmons. The pursuit of free agent wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins continues this week as the 31-year-old will visit the Patriots today and tomorrow after visiting with the Titans last weekend. And some drama appears to be quelled in Buffalo as wide receiver Stephon Diggs is on the field at mandatory minicamp. He was not there yesterday, with Bills head coach Sean McDermott telling the media he was, quote, very concerned. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once and your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour on this Wednesday. Hope you're enjoying your day so far. Hope you're getting through it a little quicker. We're going to see if we can't help you get through the last hour of this show. 615-737-1045 is how you join us. Titans have just wrapped up their last open practice of the offseason. Players coming off the field. It sounds like nobody's practicing. It's the last week OTAs. It's voluntary. Mandatory minicamp was last week. So everybody who had done so well to be here for the first three, many of them not present today. So as I mentioned earlier, Christian Fulton was physically out on the field. He stretched and then went in, according to reports. You have no sign of Traylon Burks, Derrick Henry, Daniel Brunskill, Racey McMath, NWI, Kevin Byard, Jeffrey Simmons, Azeez Al-Sher, Amani Hooker, Tierre Tart, Danico Autry, Sean Murphy Bunting, among others. So, light attendance, last week of OTAs. Mike Vrabel going to speak to the media here in just a second.
Monty Hooker's birthday today.
Oh, we haven't done a birthday in a while. A very happy, let me guess. Is Amani Hooker 26 years old today?
Happy birthday to him. I don't care. Good luck.
25.
That hurt.
Turns 25 today.
I thought 26. I was erring on the low side. 25, and he's like the old. Well, I mean, KB's the old head, but I mean, Amani Hooker. There's not a DB that's older than him, right? Or Chris Jackson. Chris Jackson's sneaky old, even though he's only been in the league for 4 years.
Trey Avery.
Trey Avery also sneaky old.
26.
Oh,
I mean, Byard is too.
yes, I know.
Also, a happy birthday. It would have been the birthday of the late great Pat Summitt.
Oh, wait. You don't want to you think it's disrespectful?
Yeah, I'd rather not.
Okay.
Born June 14th, 1952.
I understand. Real, and Pat Summitt's the only person.
She's exempt from Stephen A.
Posthumously, I think that if you're going to make an exception for anybody, I will allow you to make that exception. That is fair. We will get back to the Titans here in just a second. Mike Vrabel will be at the podium, in less than 10 minutes in all likelihood. So we'll jump over to St. Thomas Sports Park then. Meanwhile, SEC schedule release is tonight. It's for 2024, important to remember. So the SEC 2024 football schedule with the 8-game conference format with Texas and Oklahoma included in the mix, that schedule will be announced tonight. Now, we have seen some schedule leaks. Most want to see, now that we understand kind of the parameters. Well, I think that the top of that list is the scenario that you've just described, or that you described earlier in the show. I want to see Texas and Tennessee. I'm assuming that Arch Manning is going to be the starting quarterback there by 2024. I'm assuming that Nico is going to be the starting quarterback in Knoxville in 2024. I want to see those two against one another. I want to see the amount of orange that will be. There's no there's nothing to determine whether that would be a home or road game. That would be announced tonight. There's nothing to predetermine what that might be.
6 o'clock on SEC Network.
So whether it's in Austin or whether it's in Knoxville, I think that would be a phenomenal game. That is probably the top priority. Beyond that, what else would you like to see on there for Tennessee?
For Tennessee, kind of a blend of keeping secondary rivalries as much as possible. I think we can feel good about the fact that Tennessee will play Alabama in 2024, that Tennessee will play Vanderbilt in 2024. But what about Florida? What about Kentucky? Two schools that annual rivalry would be in jeopardy regardless of how the SEC moves forward. 8 games, 9 games permanently in the long term. I think we can securely say that if it is a 9-game format, which would be 3 fixed opponents, 6 rotating, that Tennessee would, with certainty, get Vanderbilt as one, and very, very likely would get Alabama as another. But that third one is a bit of a mystery to me. I don't know who they would get. I don't know if it would be Florida, if it would be Kentucky, or if it would be either of those schools, be a South Carolina.
You'd rather have Alabama over any of them, yes?
I want to preserve that rivalry, personally.
I think most people would agree with you, especially now that it projects to be more competitive on the Tennessee side of things. If I had to make you pick, though, now there's no reason why they, theoretically should have to. They could get both. But if I made you pick between Tennessee, Alabama on the schedule in 2024, or Tennessee, Texas, which would you pick?
Tennessee,
I don't know that it would come down to that.
I don't think so. I think Tennessee's playing Alabama regardless. But, yeah, Alabama. I mean, that game just holds more importance. But Tennessee and Texas have only played each other 3 times in the history of their programs.
That's what I'm saying. Are you that married to, like I said, there's nothing to say that this would have to be one or the other. I'm just curious about the question. Like, is it so important to you, the Alabama rivalry, that you would rather see something that hardly ever happens with 2 very, very high-level prospects theoretically starting at quarterback, rather than the thing that you see year in, year out for, 100 years of football?
I want both. I want all of it.
Okay.
I am excited to see what other secondary rivalries kind of sprout up with this system, even if they play each other every other year, because those things are always determined on the relationships between the fan bases, right? Matchups, what happens on the field, the drama in those games. Like we've talked about it, Tennessee, Florida was not really considered a rivalry until the SEC went to divisions in the early 90s, and then those were the 2 in the SEC East that basically the winner of that game was playing for an SEC title and most likely a national title. So I am excited to see what pops up, what kind of new animosity is formed with these games. But for Tennessee, I want a blend of preserving as much as you can in regards to Florida and Kentucky, probably the 2 most important secondary rivalries for Tennessee fans, and playing teams you haven't seen in years. Obviously, Texas, that hasn't been in the conference, that just isn't a game that's happened, and that feels like it would be an automatic rivalry right there, right? The Orange, the UT, the actual history between the state of Tennessee and the state of Texas. There's so much there. It would be so much fun. But other games that just haven't happened for Tennessee. Hosting Oklahoma. They had a home-and-home with Oklahoma in 2014, 2015, and that 2015 game in Neyland Stadium, personally, for me, is the loudest I have ever heard Neyland Stadium. I'm sure it was louder for the Alabama game. I was not in the building, but that 2015 game where Tennessee had a 17-point lead and collapsed, losing in overtime, kind of one of Baker Mayfield's coming-out parties. Mm-hmm. So coming back to that matchup would be fun. I mean, I'm trying to think, who has Tennessee just not seen? Tennessee has hardly played Arkansas. I mean, they played in 2012. They played again in 2015. Tennessee's played A&M more recently than you think. They do play them again this year.
A&M is the game that I think, because that's in Knoxville, right?
It is this year.
That, I think, is going to be one of the most interesting games to talk about, depending on where the 2 teams are at leading into that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Texas, though, I know we're talking about the Vols schedule, what we'd like to most see on the Vols schedule in 2024, but there are several leaks coming out about the Texas schedule that are being credibly reported by Chip Brown at 247 Sports and confirmed by Brett McMurphy. Texas 2024 conference schedule in their debut SEC season includes a home game versus Georgia.
Ooh. Georgia's never been to Texas. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Texas has never been to Georgia, but the 2 have hardly played in their history.
Road games at A&M and at Arkansas. Oklahoma in Dallas. So that is what we know. That is what is being credibly reported on the Texas schedule right now.
Yeah, we knew the Oklahoma game wasn't going anywhere.
Right.
They've renewed their contract with the State Fair. They play that game in the Cotton Bowl every year. They will continue to do that. I love that they are not moving that game to Jerry World. They're going to keep it in the Cotton Bowl in the middle of the State Fair. I think that's awesome. So we know that game's not going away. Be fascinated to see if they match up Texas with A&M, because that was not something that you just said, right? That's been leaked.
No, road games at Texas A&M.
Oh, you did say A&M. Oh, awesome. Okay, well, there you go. It's checked all the boxes for me for Texas. They're playing A&M. They're playing Arkansas, the old Southwest Conference rivalry. They did play at Arkansas 2 years ago, and it was a really intense game. Arkansas wins. They stormed the field. It was really cool to see that rivalry come back to life. So I would love to see Texas host Arkansas, but that's fine. I'll take it.
So I think it'd be curious to see how much pandering they do in the first season of this. Basically, how hard are they trying to sell the 8-conference game schedule, right? How well they orchestrate this first one so it looks like the best possible outcome for all these SEC fans who are clamoring for all these different kinds of games, and the allure of Texas and Oklahoma being in here, and where are the different FCC teams going to play now, and how is Texas and Oklahoma going to be incorporated into this, and where is the history between these various programs, because these are obviously programs that carry a tremendous amount of history in the going back in the across years in college football. So I think that you'll see their best foot forward as far as the making of the schedule to try and sell as hard as humanly possible the 8-game conference schedule where everybody seems to be leaning. Whether that matters or not by the time we get to 2024 and this stuff is voted upon again and Texas and Oklahoma's votes are included this time around remains to be seen. But I do think that you'll see the best possible outcome for a variety of these different teams where the 2024 schedule is.
It would do nothing to sell the 8-game schedule to me anyway. Wouldn't do anything. Because the 8-game slate is 1 permanent opponent, 7 rotating. So you have to do away with certain annual rivalries no matter what. So no matter how much you appease fan bases by preserving secondary rivalries with this stopgap for 2024, it would do absolutely nothing for me to say, oh, you know what? Maybe that 8-game slate's not so bad.
No, I think they're banking on, right, because you're thinking beyond that, right? Most people, I think, are just going to think about what's in front of them. They're going to be excited about the schedule that they see in front of them. That's all they're going to be
Well, I do think the dynamic changes with Oklahoma and Texas having a vote next year at spring meetings.
It does sound like it.
But for now, I'm excited to see how this turns out tonight.
Titans off-season program coming to a conclusion this week. We'll hear from Mike Vrabel for the last time at the podium coming up next. Titans are wrapping up their offseason. They got one more day of work, theoretically. We'll see if they actually do any work or if it's more of a team-building activities type of day. Mike Vrabel said that they usually bleep can the last day of mandatory minicamp to do just that. He said instead of doing that this year, I'd rather have a full mandatory minicamp. If they want to take a day off during OTAs, we'll do it during the voluntary one. So we will expect Mike Vrabel and Ryan Tannehill at the podium. You'll hear from them both here in just a little bit. There is, Lucas, I saw a tweet just pop up, as a matter of fact. Christian Fulton, I'm going to send it to our group text. Being asked about the repeat offender assessment that Mike Vrabel, did provide when talking about David Long, Christian Fulton, soft tissue injuries, the idea of being repeat offenders, and saying that there was a need for guys to figure out how to best address their training to make those things preventable.
And David Long had commented on this a few weeks ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he didn't take very kindly to it.
Yes, he I think a little more than a month ago at this point, David Long had been asked in a Zoom with Dolphins reporters. He said he wasn't, terribly appreciative of it. I'm paraphrasing here, but he didn't necessarily agree with that assessment. And, for whatever it's worth noting, whether these things are connected or not, David Long is already experiencing some difficulties staying on the field in Miami right now. So I've just sent the audio to the group, Lucas, if you would mind playing it for the audience. Christian Fulton on Mike Vrabel's repeat offender assessment having to do with the soft tissue injuries and, frankly, where he's been in the last couple of weeks.
I'm cool with, Coach says, obviously we're on the same page, we're in great spirits with each other, but I just got to take care of my part, at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what my coach said, my position coach, head coach, but at the end of the day, I know I just got to do my part, and stand on the field, and that comes with me, doing what I have to do.
Okay. So not terribly explanatory there or expansive there, but he's aware of it. He's saying what is, whether he's acknowledging the importance of it coming from his head coach or not, he's saying that, okay, I'll just do what I can do, take the necessary steps, make sure that I'm taking all the preventative measures or doing the kind of training that is recommended to make sure that these injuries, that these soft tissue injuries are more preventable than they have been. And, whether that's position coach, head coach, or otherwise, whomever's talking about the idea of being a repeat offender, just necessary to go about doing the job. So that's Christian Fulton.
I mean, Long's comments were obviously a little more antagonistic, right?
Well, that's a lot easier once you're no longer working for the guy,
Said something, I could track it down, but...
David Long?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can buy you a minute to do that if you want.
Where I think he said something about creating the narrative that he didn't appreciate on how he trains.
Oh, sure. I think those things are applicable, especially when you're dealing with guys who are entering free agency, right?
So he said, quote, if you watch film since this was David Long with Dolphins media, asked about that repeat offender comment, said, if you watch film since my rookie year to the end of this year, every play I lay it out on the line. So that was a surprise to me, talking about that quote. I feel like it kind of created a narrative a little bit as far as how I take care of my body. If you ask anybody, I'm a first one in, last one out type of guy. So I know he knows that as well. It really just put a bigger chip on my shoulder because I know what type of player I am. That wasn't discussed to me as well. So it was a lot. I took it with a grain of salt. I'm not really much of a media person, like, why did you single me out or whatever? I'm going to roll with it and just get back to work.
Well, it's never a question of his effort. Like, nobody's questioning his effort, and that's what he's citing there, laying it all out on the field. And maybe the allegation or the way that it's receiving him is that he's not doing everything humanly possible to stay out on the field. The comment by Mike was always going to be read into, one way or the other, because I see some comments in the YouTube chat like Charles Floyd, who says, what will Vrabel say that the media can twist to make fans upset today? And that's fine if you're somebody who wants to have that kind of skepticism. I'm not saying that that's not earned to a degree, but there's no way for us to twist Mike Vrabel's words on that particular subject any more than he did himself. He was questioning their ability to put themselves in position to stay out on the field. That criticism was not received well by David Long, who made comments to that effect. Now that he is no longer with the team, Christian Fulton is going to toe the company line a little closer because not only is he still under contract here, he is in a contract year. And, whether they're interested in keeping him or at this point, or that's already been decided, or if Rand Carthon, wants to Adoree Jackson this thing and bring in his own corners, whatever this looks like for Christian Fulton, it already seems like he's working uphill a little bit. Does it not?
We need to have Blaine Bishop on to talk about this because Blaine had an interesting take on it. Last year, Christian Fulton was largely available, right? Throughout offseason programs, throughout training camp.
I can't remember him missing substantial time. I'll go back and look at tweets or something to figure out, how available he was, but I don't remember it being an issue.
I mean, Blaine's stance on it was trying something different this offseason, staying off it as much as possible, doing whatever you can to mitigate the possibility of getting hurt when the season cranks up. We can get Blaine on to speak for himself on it.
I'd love to have Blaine on. That would be fun. Meanwhile, what did we find out about this team in the offseason? Throughout the court, from the time that their season ended in disgrace against Jacksonville to everything that's come down in the last couple of months. June the 14th, last OTA, last voluntary practice, most of the vets not participating at this point. What did we learn about them? How much better have they actually gotten? Can we say how much better that they've actually gotten at this point? What I can say that I know about them is that it does seem to be at least the same formulaic approach. Whether the personnel decisions by John Robinson or by Rand Carthon would have been drastically different than John Robinson in this situation, or most of John Robinson's staff was still running the draft under Rand Carthon. It feels very much, I don't want to say same old Titans, that feels like a lazy assessment, but it doesn't feel like there's any grand departures from what we're accustomed to seeing them do at this time of year. They needed offensive line help. They went out and found a couple of pieces that they think can make them slightly better. They needed wide receiver help. That's very much in question how much they've done, and basically an incomplete next to the wide receiver position. They need something more definitive at corner than they had in last year. The injuries are what they are, but still, they don't have really a secondary beyond Kevin Byard and Amani Hooker that you trust at this point. I don't know that I feel definitively better about the state of the secondary now than I did when we saw them have the 32nd ranked passing defense in football last year. Depth-wise, is there one place that you feel great about them? Top to bottom on the roster, inside linebacker depth is all but entirely turned over. Corner depth is still a big question mark. Safety depth is non-existent. Absent Elijah Molden.
Feel better at running back.
Running back is a good position. Running back is a strong position. The question is...
more intrigued by the running back position than in recent years.
Right, you've never felt bad about the running back position. Yeah. Let's hear from Ryan Tannehill for the last time this offseason.
Yeah, we were able to connect, spend a little time together. Had some great conversations, and we'll see what happens here as we move forward.
A relationship with him before Ryan, or was that kind of one of the first times you got to talk to him on an extended basis?
Yeah, I hadn't been able to meet him before, so really enjoyed meeting him and his girlfriend and spending a little time together. And like I said, it was nice meeting him, and I think he'd be a good fit here. But we'll see what happens moving forward.
Right, overall, how would you say the team, everybody has improved from the start of the offseason program to where you guys are now?
I've seen a lot of improvement, just coming out, like I said last time I was up here, just new offense, working through a new terminology, new concepts, and everyone just getting on the same page with that. I've just seen a lot of growth. We were able to work through some of those early mistakes, early miscommunications, and just being on the same page. And you've just seen those mistakes decrease as time has gone on here. So really, really happy with the way our guys have worked. Seen a lot of progress out of our younger guys and some of the veteran guys as well. So, really proud of the way we came out, worked with a purpose throughout this spring, and feel like we got a lot better.
What do you do now specifically, and then what's important maybe for other guys to do to make sure you're ready for camp?
a lot goes into it. I think you got to get yourself mentally, physically, emotionally ready to go for, I don't even know how many weeks it is now from training camp through the Super Bowl. So, a lot goes into that physically, being at your strongest, your most well-conditioned, being position-specific, heading into training camp. That way you're not playing catch-up in the early part of training camp. Mentally, being on top of this new offense and new terms and the calls and everything that goes along with that. And then you also have to take a little time to make sure you're emotionally ready to handle the length of the season. So taking some time away, recharging your batteries and coming in with a focus and an energy and ready to attack the season.
How much have you enjoyed just being here every day through all of this, and how important was that not only for yourself but for everybody else as well?
That was great. Like I said, we did a lot of good things throughout this spring, and especially with this new offense, being able to just stack those reps up with each individual player. We had great attendance throughout this spring from every position. So stacking that rep count up and up as the spring went on, being able to see multiple looks against these plays. Everyone talk through it afterwards, watch the tape together. See where we can grow and get better, and just to see the progression from day one in late May until now a month later has been a lot of fun, and we have to build on it as we move forward.
I know it's different guy to guy. Can you remember what it was like for you when you were starting out in the league in terms of developing your touch and getting to a point where you felt like you knew how to fit balls in and match kind of the arc and the pace with the route and all of that?
Yeah, it just kind of comes with time. You develop different aspects of your game, and being able to make different throws, different windows call for different throws, different plays, different concepts call for different throws. And, for me, it was just going through that process and learning that not every throw has to be a ripped ball. Sometimes it's best to put a little touch on it, let your receiver run through it, make a soft catch, and accelerate through it and go. So it's definitely a learning process, and everyone goes about that a little bit differently.
You guys today on just those throws against air to the receivers, and one day last week, seemed to have some trouble, especially early on, kind of timing them up. Is that harder than it looks, and what are you working on there exactly collectively?
Yeah, I think just getting on the same page. It's something we don't do a lot of. Especially first balls to a moving, receiver, running a go ball. He doesn't really always come out perfectly. But we had some read route, a version of a read route where the angle is going to be dependent on the coverage. One of them I didn't do a good job of explaining the full look to Chris, just being on the same page there. But we're growing through that. I think those got better as we got a little settled in there after the first couple on the go balls, and we're seeing some good balls and some good catches.
So much turnover on the offensive line. How important has it been to have the continuity that you guys had all through OTAs?
No, it's huge. Like I said several times, just being able to all get on the same page, all be confident in the terminology that we're using and not be thinking, decoding at the line of scrimmage, right? When they hear the play in the huddle, we need to break the huddle and go to the line confidently, all knowing exactly, what's expected of us, and we're not trying to figure out what's going on as we take the line of scrimmage.
Is that group a little more settled than you expected it to be through OTAs? I mean, with the lack of movement?
I don't know if I expected anything. I expected our guys to come out and work, and we'll see as we go into training camp. There's going to be competition across the board. We'll come out here, we'll compete each and every day, and at the end of it all, hopefully we gel together as a unit, and that group's playing, as one.
Aaron Burr in particular, on that note, you said he spent some time, obviously, with you guys in the film room too. Like, how do you feel like he's come about and just that leadership role too that he's taking on?
Yeah, Aaron's done a great job. You mentioned, coming into the QB meetings at 7 early in the morning, getting that extra time, making sure we're on the same page with the run game, with the mic points, with the pass game and the checks, and being able to then take that message into the O-line room and be the leader, the voice of that room. So really thankful for his work and proud of his work throughout this spring. The time he put in, obviously, he's a talented guy and moves really well. But to see him wanting to take the next step, and then doing it on a daily basis has been a lot of fun for me.
How has your experience been working with Charles London, and what are some of the ways you feel like he may have challenged you guys as a QB1?
Yeah, Charles has been great. I think he does a good job of letting us know what's expected of us each and every day, prepping us for the practice, for what's going in, getting everything consolidated to where we're on the same page and we know, what's expected of us as we go out here. And then just holding us to that standard each and every day, has some good drills he puts us through, is able to see things the same way as Tim see it, which I think is huge. When you have continuity in the way things are seen across the offense from coach to player, it makes things a lot more clear and lets the standard be clear for everybody, players and coaches included.
Ryan, sometimes you see an offense or a team install a new offense in an offseason, and then you get to the season, there's kind of like some growing pains, a learning curve as guys are getting more used to that and things are coming together. Are you guys cognizant of that? Is there anything you guys are in particular doing besides just really hitting it aggressively, trying to get it down now to combat coming in a little bit slow with the new offense?
Yeah, we're trying to attack each and every day. I think I mentioned it last time I was up here it's a learning process of all getting on the same page, terminology-wise, concept-wise, especially when you have choice routes and everything like that as a part of the offense. So being able to take advantage of these reps throughout the spring. Now when we get into training camp, take advantage of those reps during training camp, and that way we can hit the ground running once we're playing for real.
We're talking with Colton Dow, Ryan. We're talking with Colton Dow out there. What have you seen from him, and is there anything specifically that you've seen him progress in from day one up until now?
Yeah, Colton's done some good things. Seeing him grow as a lot of the rookies have. Coming in, learning a new offense, trying to figure everything out, not just the new offense, but the NFL in general. And rookies have the worst schedule by far of anyone in the building besides the coaching staff. They're here early, they stay late. They're here for another 2 weeks right after this. So your rookie year is a long year. You're taking in a lot of information, on the field stuff, off the field stuff, and everything in between, navigating, setting boundaries. There's a lot that goes into it, right? So being able to navigate all those things. But as a rookie class, seeing the guys that we have, drafted guys and undrafted guys, come in, they're working hard. We're all getting on the same page, seeing the extra time that they're putting in the afternoons come and pay off on the practice field has been a lot of fun, and Colton's included in that.
That's Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill. Coming up next, head coach Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel's at the podium. He has just confirmed it's the last day of work for the Titans. We go live to St. Thomas Sports Park.
To protect, and sometimes when you're trying to throw those timing routes on 3rd and 7, that you got to be in the right spot. Ball can't get tipped. Their protection's got to be there, and when you throw the ball down the field, like we've got to make sure that as a receiver, like it's us or nobody. And so that's another situation that's going to get shown tomorrow morning with those rookies. Like it's your responsibility to make sure that ball is not intercepted when we take a shot down the field.
What do you want players to do now until you start?
Probably the most critical 5 weeks of the season. Just in my experience as a player and a coach, like what you do away from here. When things aren't planned or structured, are you able to get into a routine? So what I want them to do is go prepare for a long season, a long, grueling season of professional football. That's what I want them to do. And so we tried to give them drills. We extended individual time today so that the coaches could review those drills that they can do, with their trainer or on their own or whatever they're doing, giving them some ideas. And then obviously I'm sure whoever they're working out with will have some ideas, and then the player will have some ideas. So that's what I want them to do, but it's the most critical 5 weeks of the season.
What would you say are some of the ways you guys have gotten better, especially like with this being the last day? You go back to the first day, you forwarded to here. How did you
think that's just the culmination of the spring, right? You install and first, second, then you go to third, and then you work the red zone, different parts of the red zone. So it was good to be able to see those situations change, and the players and coaches coming in from the sideline, communicating, substitution. I thought the operation was good. We got a lot of great work in. We were able to throw the football, have the quarterbacks work through a pocket, and real application as opposed to just a bunch of 7-on-7. So I think our conditioning improved. I think our football conditioning improved. We strung 6 or 7 plays together, out there today. So thought it was a good way to end.
That time away maybe isn't where Christian Fulton has done some of his best work. He talked to us today about kind of revising his off-season program and everything, and understanding what you were saying about repeat offending. How do you feel like he's done in terms of his commitment to changing?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say that's you stated when you started that the 5 weeks away was time that he hadn't done his best work. I didn't say that. Nobody else has said that. That's a personal opinion that I probably don't agree with. But it's we ask every player that you train the way that you're going to play, and when you play a skill position, you have to run, you have to go and open up, and you have to change direction. And it's not 5 yards; it's whenever you have to cut. So there's reactionary movements, D linemen. Like there's certain things that are going to be in the job description, and we ask every player. That's why we do the drills that we do. That's why we practice the way that we practice, because we want to practice the same way that we're going to play, and to finish and to try to go get an extra block and protect the guy with the ball, and all those things that we think help us win. So that's the most important thing, is that you're thinking in a manner that you're going to train the way you're going to play.
What makes you? Do you feel good about where Christian is in kind of his adjusted approach?
I mean, I think that'll all be determined by how training camp goes and how he performs on the field.
Your lack of movement on the offensive line, as far as his body's a good indication that they're progressing the way you would have hoped, that you were able to stick with that group?
I thought that group, I thought that group continued to improve, throughout from the beginning of OTAs and phase 2, and some much better performances today out on the practice field than there were, last week. And that's all you ask for, is that guys continue to improve, work on the techniques, and then translate it to the field.
Malik said he's improved at letting it rip and kind of getting his body in time with his brain, something you said a lot, talked a lot about this time last year. How have you seen him grow in that area?
I thought he continued to get better. I thought just his attitude, his demeanor, making little coaching points with them and seeing that immediately translate, him understand, the reason for saying that. Today was something cool that came up. I moved the ball to the 35-yard line and said it was 3rd and 7, and it was Malik, and we converted. But following back up on him, I was like, hey, what was the situation? And it didn't dawn on him that we were kind of right on that fringe field goal, 3rd and 7, not trying to lose any yards, could potentially go for it on 4th down based on the wind and whether we feel like we can kick and make a field goal from that distance. And, long story short, we converted. But eventually it's going to have to be, all those things are going to have to trigger in a quarterback's mind, pretty quickly as the ball's being set and guys are getting into the huddle and the calls coming in. They have to, the quarterback has to think like, I would, and saying, even if I take care of the football and I gain a couple yards and don't lose any, we can kick a field goal or put coach in position to, potentially go for it. So those are great learning opportunities, and he, very receptive to all those.
Coach, when it comes to these free agents that you did bring in, like Azeez and Sean Murphy-Bunting and Arden Key, like to be possibly starters, how do you feel like they've gelled with this group? Because from an outsider's perspective, it seems like they fit.
They are great, and that's what you try to target in free agency, Kayla. It's tough, to not know some of these guys and have some personal knowledge and experiences and a relationship with them. And felt great about everybody that's come in and worked and been a part of the team and just let their personality shine. And Azeez, leading and Arden with his energy and all those things. The guys coming in and that's how you form a team. But it's. You got to be careful when you do that and you bring a bunch of guys in. They got to be the right guys.
Mike, you talked before about how much you enjoy being hands-on with guys and teaching fundamentals and things like that. When you played, you only played a handful of positions, but it seems like you're really into the fundamentals at 22 or 53 spots, however you want to phrase it. Where did your love of learning that and working in that way with guys start?
I think it's just, for me, it was I need a way to reach a play. That is a connection, right? So for me, you try to make a connection off the field, whether about their family or what they're interested in or their charitable endeavors. But on the field, for me to get around and have a connection with a guy, I've got to know and have knowledge, right? So maybe it was, when my son started playing O-line, in the 10th grade, is figuring out what that's supposed to look like. But I've always felt like, as a player, if you know what the guy across from you is doing and what his job is, maybe you can be better at your job. If I know how a tight end's supposed to block or what they're teaching him to do on blocking, then as an outside linebacker, I should be able to know that and understand that and try to use that to my advantage. If I know how they're trying to set routes up and, stem and attack leverage and, then beat me across, whatever it may be, then I can try to use that to help me do my job. And that was always, they're all mirrored positions, right? There's a running back that's across from a linebacker. And so I thought that was always something I tried to do as a player, and I just carried it over to this.
What kind of improvement have you seen from Thomas Odukoya since you got here last year?
We've, talked about it yesterday as a staff, and, had a really nice play Monday, in the red zone using his length. He's physically gotten stronger, moving better, understands the game better. Just a fantastic addition to our team. He's just an unbelievable teammate. Love having him around, love having him in the building. So it's been really cool to see him improve, and see where he can and try to find a role on our football team. But certainly one of the more improved players, Jimmy, on our football team.
Will had a couple turnovers today, but how would you gauge his growth and development during OTAs, and what do you want him to focus on the next couple of weeks?
Well, he's improved. He's gotten better. There's a lot of good things. Understanding when the journey's over, making sure that we're, moving out of the pocket and trying to keep plays alive, and but also making sure that that the result isn't a negative one. It's one thing when defenses make plays. It's another when, we're reckless with the football, and so there's sometimes a difference. But I feel like just him in and out of the huddle, or the things that we made adjustments on in the red zone, I saw that get cleaned up here today. So I think it's just a daily improvement, a daily approach, especially with the young quarterbacks.
That's Titans head coach Mike Vrabel for the last time this offseason. It's going to do it for us today. No polls. We'll do it tomorrow. We'll update some of them then. We'll be back at it. Come hang out with us at Hattie B's on Charlotte Pike. We'll be there tomorrow. We'll have Chris Doring of the SEC Network. We'll have Stephen Young of Home Street Home. It'll be a great time. See you then.